When we were planning our trip to the Serbian territory of Kosovo and gathering the information, we were advised to look up the internet page. But we really found a lot of information there. We learned that Kosovo was the cradle of the Serbian Orthodoxy, statehood, and national identity. We learned that in 1389 Serbians lost a battle against Turks on Kosovo field. After that, centuries of Turkish domination tempered the Serbians' love of freedom. This land knows traitors and heroes, bitter defeats and glorious victories. At different times it laughed and cried like any other land. We also learned that at the turn of the 21st century, there were 150 churches fewer, and that the Serb population had shrunk by 500,000. You can find this information on the website www.kosovo.net. The Balkan people, like other nations, have been searching for the truth for centuries. People always long for the truth. They find it, and it is not there, and it is near here.
Da svi ljudi imaju pravo na svoj život, na svoju veru, na svoju kulturu, slobodu, mir, pravdu.
He remembered them wearing their white holiday dresses since that noon. The girls were born on the same day, but with a difference of 2 years. One girl was 4 and the other was 6. To celebrate their birthday, their mother was going to bake a pie and their favorite family dish, tave el basani, lamb with yogurt. We are retelling you the story heard from an old nun in the Pečka Patriarcha nunnery. We were more impressed by her words than the beauty of nature and architecture, or famous dates and names. She told us, "It is important to learn history not for knowing, but for understanding." It happened in the late 1990s. He got a phone call and had to go to a muster in the neighboring village. He had been in the ranks of the Kosovo Salvation Army for 4 years. He told his wife and daughters that he would be back in a couple of hours and that they would surely celebrate. He didn't want to go, but couldn't refuse. It was an order. His wife and daughters saw him to the wicket. The truck arrived. He kissed them and got on. He was the only passenger as his house was the remotest on the pickup route to the meeting point. More men like him joined him on the way. They greeted one another and then kept silent. In Kralina, their commander got on. He said they had a mission and the time of patience had run out. In the vicinity of Mitrovica, a Serbian man set his dog on an Albanian boy who had picked plums in his garden. The dog hounded the boy into the river. The boy drowned. Everybody got their weapons. It was getting dark. The truck came to the Serbian village. The commander ordered them to raise the village. His target was the house on the outskirts. When it got completely dark, he walked in. He had to take revenge for the death of his young co-religionist. He had his order. In the house, he saw a woman and a child. The boy was about 10 years old. He paused for a second. Then he took out a knife and killed the boy and his mother. She cried, "Oh, Stefan, my son, Stefan, my son." Empty-hearted, he was returning home with the rest of the group. No one spoke. He asked the driver to drop him now, before they reached his house. He wanted to be alone. That strident cry was still ringing in his ears. He was walking through the village of his ancestors. His girls must be asleep now. They didn't wait for him. It's too late. Walking into his house, he saw that Serbs had done the same to his family. The girls had their white birthday dresses on. He swore to avenge as long as he would live, and nothing could break his oath. Kosovo was shaking with war. The land was burned by fire and hatred. A few months later, peacekeepers arrived, and the war was in hiding. He had to work somewhere and earn his living. Factories were destroyed and farms lay in ruins. There was a monastery a few miles from his empty house. And he, a Muslim, worked hard to restore the sacred place of Serbian Orthodoxy, the Pecha Monastery. Here our storyteller got acquainted with him. He worked and waited for a chance to revenge. All his emotions were gone. There was only anguish and the sense of duty to his girls. He remembered them prattling at the wicket, and lying there, in the house, and that heart-rending cry of the Serbian woman, "Stefan, my son." He talked to the nun unwillingly. She worked in the refectory and catered to the workers like him, both Albanians and Serbs. As time went by, they communicated oftener. He was sent to help her in the kitchen. He was bored with her stories and her fiddle-faddle that people never learn from the past, and that all are equal to God, and that violence could never stop violence. That old woman knew a lot, but what could she understand? Once she told him about the other war, in which she was the same age as him. The Nazis, along with the Ustashi, the Croats who sided with them, came to Klepac. She saw people being herded into trucks and taken away. She and her son hid in a barn and peeped through a chink at what was happening. She saw the Ustashi walk into the house and take out old Vukashin, his wife and children. They were shot right in front of him, and he was put into the truck. Then the Ustashi found her and her son and threw them into the same truck. They were brought to Jasenovac, a concentration camp for Serbs. At night, the prisoners were driven out of the barracks to a big ditch. They were standing together, she, her son, and Vukashin. After the war, she read the testimony of the executioner who had killed her son and Vukashin, but didn't kill her. The executioner reminisced. Zrinušić, Šipka, Brzica, and I made a bet. Who of us would kill more Serbs in one night? The slaughter started. In 1 hour, I got well ahead of the others. That night, I had an inspiration. I felt like I was soaring in heavens. I'd never felt such bliss. In several hours, I killed about 1,100 people, and my competitors killed only 300 or 400. At the moment of the highest ecstasy, when I was killing some teenager and his mother was yelling like hell, my eye caught an old peasant. He was standing there with some incomprehensible calmness, watching me kill. I walked up to see who he was. He said his name was Vukashin. He came from the village of Klepac. All his relatives were dead and he was taken to Jasenovac. His calmness impressed me more than the cries and moans of the dying people. When I was listening to the old man looking into his clear blue eyes, I wanted to destroy that incomprehensible inner calmness with the cruelest tortures. I took him out of the line and ordered him to cry, "Long live Croatia!" I threatened that I would cut off his ear if he didn't obey. Vukashin kept silent. I cut off his ear. He didn't say a word. Then again I ordered him to cry, "Long live Croatia!" and threatened that I would cut off the other ear. He was silent. I cut off the second ear. "Cry it out, or you will lose your nose." The old man was silent again. For the fourth time I ordered him to cry out the same words under the threat of cutting out his heart. He stared at me as if into some eternity and said, "Go on with your work, kid." I went mad. I fell on him, cut out his eyes and heart and pushed him into the ditch. It seemed that something broke inside me. I couldn't kill anymore. Bzica won our bet. He killed 1,350 prisoners. And I paid him the money. The nun saw tears on the man's face. He wiped them off, got up, and walked away. She didn't know what he was thinking. Maybe he remembered his wife and daughters. What was brewing in his heart? A few days later, he was sent to the Vysokie Dechany monastery, and again the war started. No matter how hard the peacekeepers tried, they could hold back neither the Albanians nor Serbians. One day he had to fetch firewood from the forest. There, Albanians caught and beat him, not knowing that he was their kin. They took him and 100 other Serbs to the mountains. Thinking how to reveal himself, he heard an old Albanian escort whisper to him, "You Serb, you understand where we are taking these people, the whole village of them. I will help you get away if you do what I ask. In that village down the hill there is nobody left." We took everyone away. In the yard with a green wicket, to the right of the church, I locked my children in the cellar. They will die if nobody lets them out. Soon there will be a gully. You will fall behind and I will look the other way. Run, take the children and go to Montenegro. He got to the village when it was almost dark. He found the house. Then he found a kerosene lamp. He didn't want to turn on the light. He pushed the rug aside, broke off the lock, and opened the cellar lid, putting down the lamp. Two pairs of frightened eyes were staring at him. Two Serbian girls, the same age as his daughters.